Hey guys, so Passmore here. I've been thinking about doing a YouTube channel for a little bit now, and kind of gotten to a point where I'm able to have a little bit more time, not work on the car as much. So figured this would be a good time to go ahead and introduce you to the Nova, show you what it is, what I've done to it, and what my plans are, and kind of just get something started. So let's get to it. All right, so what we've got is a 76 Nova. It was a street car about 13 years ago, 12, 13 years ago. A guy bought it from a car lot up in Tennessee, I think Maple Motors. And from there, he took it to a chassis shop in also Tennessee. I think it was Ice Motorsports at the time. I don't think they're still around, but anyway, had it converted into basically kind of what you see now. Had it back halved, ladder barred, suspension upgraded, the control arms, the shocks, coilovers, brakes, wheel tubs, roll cage, a bunch of things to it. And raced it a little bit, and it traded hands a few times before it got to me about 2 years ago. I bought this car as a pretty much a bare roller. It was just a body frame, suspension, rear end, and steering, and then of course most of the major stuff done to the interior work. But as far as putting it together, it's basically been pretty much me. That's done a lot to it. So we'll start with the engine. This engine I bought from a guy over in Mississippi about a year ago now. It's a 355. It's an older or a newer block, one-piece rear main, about a 98, 99 model. Best I can tell, it was a ZZ4 crate engine at one point. There's a couple things that make me believe that. One is the timing cover that you have. It's one of those it's kind of different than your average small block Chevy timing cover. Just as far as the way it looks, and actually the material, that's kind of like a plastic material. And then the crankshaft that's in it, the part number matches up to 98 later model design, or second half year model design ZZ4 crate engine. So that's kind of what makes me believe it's got it was a ZZ4 crate engine at one time, and then somebody just kind of turned into a all-out race engine. But top to bottom, it's a 750 Proform carburetor, Holley float bowls, got a 2-inch spacer, Pro Comp intake. It's got the old school double hump heads. They've been ported and polished. They've got the bigger valves in them, the 202 valves. Can't remember what the combustion chamber on these heads are. I've tried researching it on the internet, and of course, you find different answers, but I think it's about 62, 64 cc. Velum pistons, 6-inch HB rods. Again, GM Performance crankshaft. It's a flat tappet cam, 580 lift. I don't know much about the cam. Guy bought it from, didn't really know much about it. Actually, I think he got the engine in a trade deal, so he didn't know everything about it. We pulled the timing gears off to see if maybe there was a part number on the end of the cam, but I think it's on the other end of the cam, and I didn't want to pull the cam out just to get a camshaft number. So when I bought it, I cleaned it up, replaced all the gaskets except for the head gaskets. And then up front, we've got a new radiator, new fan. Pretty much everything you just about see is new. New alternator. It's a 100 amp, 10 SI alternator. Nothing special. Had to kind of fabricate to make that work. You'll notice, this is obviously kind of like a lower mount bracket. Had to end up flipping it upside down. The reason I had to do that was when you went to go turn the wheel, pitman arm was hitting the alternator. So with no accessory holes, on the heads, you can't buy another alternator bracket unless you were to drill the heads, which I'm not comfortable with doing. So I ended up flipping this upside down. It was gonna work, but I had to kind of still make it work a little bit. The set screw in the U-joint, steering U-joint, was hitting the case. Let's see if I can get it right around in here. So I had to grind the case a little bit to get that extra little bit of clearance. And then I had to fabricate this kind of L bracket, which is kind of what these heads used from the factory. It was an L bracket back in the day. Just cut that spacer to spec, and then mounted everything up. Seems to work okay. It's got a tad bit more play in the belt, and I'd like it for it too, but so far it's held together. And like I said on the car, TRZ upper control arms, QA1 lowers, QA1 single adjustable coilovers all the way around. It's got strange brakes, front and back. It's got a new Champion radiator in it, overflow tank, hoses, new steering gearbox, new coil, new fuel lines, a lot of new things on this car. Some of it, like the headers I was given when I bought the car, we're just running open headers on this setup. Not able to run mufflers because of the way the headers come out to the cross member and how that's all fitted. So going to the inside of the car, I ended up rewiring the entire car. Took the door panels off and wrapped those in black vinyl, as well as the dash. Figured if the rest of the interior was black, having that dull aluminum look just was kind of an eyesore to me, so figured I'd get rid of that. I made this whole Lexan piece, and on that piece you've got your MSD box, my RPM switch, my two-step, and my K&R wiring relay panel. And then up here is your switch panel from K&R. It's a whole kit that comes together. I would recommend it, especially if you've never wired a car together before. Before wiring this car, the only thing I ever wired was a Pioneer aftermarket radio. So point is it's real basic. The diagram lays it out pretty plain for you, and as long as you follow that, car will fire up first time, no problem, no magic smoke, no fires, nothing like that, you know, or at least so far, not for me. Um, but I made I made a seat bracket, or a seat mount, I should say, uh, for this, and then I bought the back one, had to modify it a little bit to get it to work. New seat belts, B&M ratchet shifter. It's got a Biondo electric shift solenoid on it. This little button right here, I'm using this as a secondary trans brake button. Basically, when I put the car in reverse and I need to back the car up, I'm gonna just hold that button instead of holding it up on the wheel. Make it a little bit easier. Anyway, back to the wiring. Probably can't see it too terribly well. We got 3 terminal strips. This bottom one right here is all my grounds. This middle one right here is my relay panel and my starter alternator. My top one is my ignition only. Basically, the MSD box runs to it. I've got my lung lock, my second trans brake button, and my main trans brake button on it. And then up here, I fabricated, you probably can't see it with it being dark. It's basically a 3/4 inch piece of aluminum angle that I went from each side of the dash on the car and mounted. Yeah, I just ran my wires over this and then zip tied the wires to that. That way everything's going the same direction. It's not a rat's nest. This is my stretch cord for my trans brake button. I've got a little 2-flat little connector like what you'd use on a trailer. That'll just plug in to the steering wheel right there. That way I can, if I need to take the steering wheel, you know, off the car and away from the car and do something to the trans brake button or whatever, you know, I can do that. So that's the purpose of that. Like I said, the car's been tubbed. It's got a big tire on it, 3114. Running the Hoosier D05 compound. We're gonna see how that works on this car. Hopefully the tires are still good. They've been sitting for a while, but have a lot of life in them, so we should be okay there.